This is brutal. Last night, the Islanders won a huge game against the Dallas Stars, one of the best teams in the NHL. But unfortunately, that win was spoiled by an injury that looked really ugly. We're going to discuss it on this episode of Islanders Digest. Also talk about the lack of repercussions that were faced by the Dallas Stars, and really talk about what is next for the Islanders, because with this injury, there is going to be a change for likely at least the next few games for the Islanders. They're going to have to replace Alexander Romanov, who took a really ugly hit at the end of that game. We already know that he's not going to be playing in the next game for the Islanders, next handful of games, I believe, for the Islanders, because he's on the IR. Now, the Islanders have not placed him on the LTIR, which in some years would be encouraging. However, I want to remind you, this year, the Islanders really have not been using their LTIR space, so this does not mean that this is not a long-term injury. All we know is the Islanders putting Romanov on the IR means he was in fact injured in this game, which we all know. Looking at the way he came off the ice, I was really concerned watching Romanov. The way he was hunched over as they led him off, it's really concerning because Alexander Romanov is such a tough player and he's dealt with shoulder injuries before. So whether it's his shoulder or something like that, we know this is a player who's played through some tough things in the past. So the fact that he couldn't even lift himself up is very concerning as he was making his way off the ice. But hopefully, you gotta hope this is not a season-ending injury. It could potentially be that, which is why we're going to have to talk about at least short-term replacements on this episode of Islanders Digest. But before that, I really want to focus on the fact that Mikko Rantanen did not receive any discipline for this hit. Yes, he got a 5-minute major on the ice, which was confirmed by the referees looking over the hit. That was the right call. It should have been a 5-minute major. But other than that, there's going to be no suspension on this play, and I disagree with that for the main reason that the whole reason you have these rules in place with suspensions and all this is to prevent dirty hits like this. And I'm not saying Rantanen is a dirty player. I'm not saying he's a bad person or anything like that, but that hit last night, even if it was not entirely intentional, we're going to talk about it in one moment. You have some Dallas Stars fans arguing that, oh, he was tripped first, which justifies what he did with his arm. No, you pushed a player from behind into the boards full force. That should be a suspension, especially when you look at some of the other plays that have gotten suspensions in the NHL this season. Jonathan Drouin's cross-checking penalty. I'm sorry, if we're going to be suspending players for that, we have to suspend players for plays that can cause serious injuries like this. And frankly, the Islanders are fortunate. Alexander Romanov is fortunate that he was not or injured more than he was on this play, and that's insane to say considering how bad he looked after this play. But Romanov is incredibly lucky that at the end of this hit he was able to get his head up, so he didn't go head first into the boards. He went in leading with his shoulder, leading with his arm. One of those is likely what he injured, but he's fortunate that he didn't go in head first and potentially injure his neck or suffer a incredibly massive concussion. I don't think he got a concussion on this play, but he likely could have still, because the force he had going into the boards was very high. My point is, this is a very dangerous play. This is exactly what you should suspend players for. And at the very least, what that teaches players is, hey, I know this was an accident. I don't think Mikko Rantanen's intention was to injure Romanov on this play. But intent should not really matter. If you put a player in danger, taking a penalty, then there should be some sort of ramification beyond a penalty in this game. Because again, after all this, he suffered what? He spent 30 seconds in the... Oh, well, he left the ice, but he spent 30... the Stars had a 30-second penalty, and they almost scored if it didn't happen. The goal didn't get taken off because they ran the goalie. There has to be more from the NHL. And to the argument that this happened because he was tripped by Scott Mayfield, looking here, of course, we can't show the video from the game, but here, yes, there was contact from Scott Mayfield, but look how far this contact is away from the boards. And look, Mikko Rantanen has plenty of time here to not do anything, but instead he chooses to push out and shove Romanov into the boards. This is something that you should know. You know from Pee Wee that you can't hit a player from the numbers. And you're going to tell me that pushing your arms out like this towards a player's back is a natural reaction to getting tripped, especially considering that if you look here, Mikko Rantanen does not fall down. I'm sorry. Look, I understand fans, you want to defend your favorite player. And again, I'm not saying Mikko Rantanen is a dirty player or anything like that, but this was a bad hit. And to just say like, oh, well, it's Scott Mayfield's fault. No, I'm sorry. Mikko Rantanen was playing way too physical out at the player's back. He deserves a suspension. It's not going to happen. We'll see what happens the next time the Islanders play this team, because I don't know if you saw, Patrick Waugh had a hot mic moment. I couldn't hear everything he said, in particular the first few words he said. He was very animated after this game, rightfully so, but you could kind of hear him, as Drew Livingstone points out, you can kind of hear him say, you're not going to finish that game, referring to the next time that the Islanders play the Dallas Stars. And these are two teams that you would not expect to have a crazy game in March, considering just how many rivals, the Dallas Stars and the Islanders, they only play twice a year. This is a game that is going to be really interesting to see how the Islanders respond, because again, there was really nothing that the Islanders could do to punish the Dallas Stars for what happened in this play, just because it was like the second to last play of the game. The Islanders are lucky that they came out, and I wouldn't say lucky they came out with the win. It was the NHL made the right call saying that Rittich got interfered with on that goal, but you do have to get lucky a bit for the NHL to make the right call. I'm also not going to critique the Islanders at all for allowing that opportunity after Romanov went off. First of all, when your friend goes down like that, it's really difficult to focus on the play at hand. So I'll give them a pass for that. They have been questionable defending leads so far this season, but that's one I'm not really going to focus on. The important thing is the Islanders got 2 points, and hopefully Romanov is okay. But since we know for a fact that he is going to be on the IR, at least temporarily, I'm hoping this is a shorter term thing, but just realistically looking at that hit, I think the Islanders would just be lucky to get Romanov back at any point this season. I'm hoping he does not need surgery. As Elliot Friedman mentions, he is a player who has had shoulder surgery in the past. It could, I'm trying not to speculate too much on what it could be. The point is, this is a player, regardless of the way that looked, it's likely he is going to be dealing with significant time. And even if not, because he's on IR, the Islanders do have to call somebody else up. And as of right now, we believe that's going to be Marshall Warren. That makes the most sense to me. I mean, Marshall Warren already played 2 games for the Islanders this season. The last time Romanov was out. Some people might be wondering why Isaiah George's name isn't really coming up. Stefan Rosner expects it to be Marshall Warren. I expect it to be Marshall Warren as well. And that is because Isaiah George is currently dealing with an upper body injury. Don't know the extent of that. Maybe at some point, especially if this is a longer term thing, maybe we do see Isaiah George at some point, but considering he's injured, it makes sense that Marshall Warren will be the first call up. And for the record, I thought Marshall Warren played very well in his first 2 game stints with the Islanders. His first game was very strong. The second one, I think he struggled a bit. I think the NHL speed kind of got him a little bit unprepared, but I think Marshall Warren can handle this just fine. And keep in mind, Marshall Warren is not going to have to play every single game that Alexander Romanov is out. The Islanders still have their 7th defenseman in Adam Boqvist, and while he is a right-sided shot defenseman, I'm sure the Islanders can figure something out. Maybe you put Scott Mayfield on the right side and allow Adam Boqvist to play on his natural... Sorry, you put Scott Mayfield on the left side and allow Adam Boqvist to play on his more natural right side, that being because Adam Boqvist is a more offensive minded defenseman, so whichever side is more comfortable for him makes more sense for the Islanders to focus on. But between Marshall Warren, Adam Boqvist, and the other depth defenseman the Islanders have, I think this is an injury they can overcome. This is not a situation where you need to panic. Maybe if things don't go well, they look to make a trade in the future. But as of right now, I think the organization is more than comfortable with running with Marshall Warren, and hopefully this is not a situation they have to deal with all season long, because it looked bad. It sucks that it just ruined what would have been a really hype game for the Islanders. So you could tell in the locker room that a lot of the players were shaken up. The players on the ice could tell. And especially considering how Alexander Romanov is such a tough player, for him to go down on the ice like that. It's very unfortunate. I hope he's okay. But until then, this is a great opportunity for Marshall Warren to step up and potentially make a name for himself in the NHL. When we talk about bright sides of something like this, well, you never want to see a player get injured. Young players like Marshall Warren, Isaiah George having a opportunity to shine in the NHL is always a positive thing. We saw that with Isaiah George last year, and that's going to do it for this episode of Islanders Digest. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm your host, Patrick Nyland. Catch you on the next episode of Islanders Digest. Let's go, Islanders.